John Lee takes down a challenge with Reanimator.
Next on Eternal Turtles.
Extreme thank you to all the Dirtomaniacs that support the show. If you want to get ad-free content and extra free content, you can go to patreon.com/EternalDurtles and support us. Proceeds go to editing the show, upgrading equipment, and helping us travel to events. What it do? Hello and welcome to Eternal Durtles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me this week we have special guest John Lee. John, it's been a long time coming. I'm so glad to have you on the show, man.
Yeah, it's super exciting to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. John is an old friend and used to play at my local back when I lived in New York. He plays at Phil's local, or what will eventually be Phil's old local, up at Gamestoria. Yeah, it's great to have you on. But you also had a pretty amazing last weekend, right?
Yeah. It was super grindy, and I took down the challenge with Blue Black Reanimator.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what I want to do is, everyone knows that Blue Black Reanimator is going to be the deck to beat at Eternal Weekend, duh, right? But what I want to do is run through the paces with you, go through round by round, not like get super hard detailed into it, but talk about some of the decisions you made in sideboarding, what you think is important in the matchups and stuff like that as you went through this tournament, and kind of give people an insight into, if they're playing this deck, how to make those decisions, but also if they're not playing this deck, they're gonna end up playing against it at Eternal Weekend at some point. So try and get into your head to see what their opponent might be thinking when they're going through the rounds. So without further ado, which I hate to say, yeah, let's talk about the tournament. So tell me about the deck. Was there anything that wasn't stock that you ran? We'll have a list down below, obviously. Eternal Durtles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield. Moxfield is the best Magic the Gathering deck building website on the internet. You can create, share, and find decks from Commander to Legacy, and even fan-supported formats like Pre-Modern and Old School. You can see all of our decks on our Moxfield. Follow the links below to stay tuned.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, this is a really funny story, and I didn't tell you this before, which is that, so I was testing this build in a league before the challenge started, and I didn't have time to actually rent the build that I wanted to register because I thought this one was too clunky. I thought the mana base was too greedy. There were things about it that I just didn't agree with, but my computer was laggy. I didn't have time, so I just hit submit join.
Been there.
And
yeah.
then, round one starts. I'm like, okay, my hand's actually pretty good. Let's see where it goes. So we'll just get into each round. The first one was the Reanimator mirror.
Well, before we get into that round,
Yeah.
what was about the mana base that was clunky?
Oh, for sure. So there was 5 fetches, right?
Okay.
4 deltas, it's pretty standard, and then 1 blue fetch. I played Misty, Rainforest. You can do any of the other blue ones. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then 2 Undercity Sewers, so 2 Surveil lands.
Yeah.
And then only 16 lands and 3 Wastelands, which normally if you're gonna run 16 lands, in the past I've seen like either 2 Wastelands with 2 Undercity Sewers, or 3 fetches, 1 Undercity Sewers, and 3 Wastelands. But I've never seen 2 Undercity Sewers, 3 Wastelands, 5 fetches. To me, that was just like mega greed. So that was A, and then B was the full set of Metamorph Fanatics.
Full set of Metamorphs, not just 3. Most people are playing 3. Okay.
I was gonna register 2.
Oh, okay. All right.
This one had 4 in it, but I wanted to stress test 4.
Yeah.
Right. I was in the middle of the match. It was taking longer than usual. I probably should have just conceded so I could, open up mana traders or whatever. But I registered this. So those were the 2 main things that were the most like concerning going into the challenge. And then the last thing was it was only playing 1 Fairy Macabre. I wanted to play at least 2 Fairy Macabres and play and then 1 Hurt, unlicensed Hearse.
Okay.
And not really play Ghost Vacuum just because I had no experience playing Ghost Vacuum. But Fairy Macabre, I think, you can't counter it. You can stifle it, and you can Pithing Needle it. But Fairy Macabre just seemed like it was a better option. So I think those were my those would have been my choices. I would have had probably 17 lands, 2 metamorphs, and more fairy macaques on the sideboard. And then yeah,
Okay.
those would have
All
been what
right.
I would have.
So your first round was Reanimator. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the mirror. In game one, what do you think is the most important thing in game one?
In game one, I think being on the play is very important.
That makes sense.
If we can check that off, that's huge, right? And then just being able to stick a threat early. Um, most decks are playing two fatal push, if any. I've seen lists that just cut fatal push altogether. They're only playing um, probably two Thoughtseizes. I've tried three Thoughtseizes, which actually wasn't bad either. But I have seen lists with four, but it's normally two Thoughtseizes, two fatal push. And so if you can like land a frog, or if you can stick a troll, like that's huge. If you can combo off, great. Like that's awesome. That's best case scenario. But if you can just get something going and protect it, then I think you're in a good spot. So in game one, I cycle a troll just because I just had land troll in my hand. They went land go, and then I just top decked what's it called? A fanatic, and I did like the day's backup or something, and then I just chained fanatic to the troll, and then they just conceded on the spot. Um, I believe. And then game two more or less went the same way, where um, just sort of just having that just that critical mass of the fanatics really kind of push that deck forward in the mirror, because people say like, oh, it's so clunky if it's in your hand, right? But if you have a fanatic in your hand and you're cutting fanatics, the chances of you miracling another fanatic is less.
Yeah.
So it's this like weird kind of tension with it, this weird like contradiction where you're like, oh, if I didn't have so many fanatics in my deck, maybe I wouldn't be in my opening hand. But then at some point you're like, well, I really need to top deck this fanatic right now. Or I really need to set up this fanatic, but there's only two in my deck. So I think that's sort of where I'm at. I don't know if four is the right number. It worked out this time,
Yeah.
and it definitely bailed me out of a lot of situations. Not just in this round, but in like in future rounds.
Well,
So
let's talk about sideboarding.
yeah.
So what's your plan? Game one, and does it change if you win or lose the first? Sorry, game two. But what does it change if you win or lose the first game?
It doesn't change if I win or lose, but it definitely changes on play draw, I think.
Okay.
So the kind of conventional wisdom is, days is out, forces in on the draw, right? Days is in, forces out, something like that on the play. Which, if you're sort of like just picking up the deck, you can start there. But it's also important to kind of feel out the matchup, kind of understand what your opponent is going for. Like, do you think they're the kind of person who'd leave the combo in? Do you think they're taking it all out? And that's really like and that's more like a game three call, right?
Yeah.
Where you kind of both go like, it's like it's like this game of like Reanimator chicken. It's like
Yeah. Yeah. It's
who's
something
gonna,
I was talking about in the last episode with Phil. Is
yeah,
if I win my first game, I tend to think I can be a little more loose with whether or not I take out the combo or not. Sometimes
yeah,
I'll just shuffle up some cards and keep the combo in and be like, yeah, they're probably going to sideboard in a bunch of stuff to deal with my fair game, thinking that they know everyone's aware of the juke to like switch to the fair game with this deck. So if you
yeah,
just keep the unfair part of the deck going, right, and then get them, if you can like kind of switch gears on them and get them on the wrong game, because they're gonna bring in, because you kept it in, right, and then if you go, oh, okay, I'll bring in all the fair stuff now, and it's all like it's this weird jockeying for position, because online no one can see you, right? No
yeah,
one knows if you're doing that or not doing that. And at EW, people can see you putting cards in and out of your sideboard, so you have to like make this calculation: is this person paying attention to me or not? That sort of thing. So
oh,
it's one of those things that I do personally, is like I try to determine. I like to play that game of chicken. Like I'd like to try and see if my opponent can like guess right. Did I do the thing?
totally, totally. And I guess that's another point to mention too is like if you do plan on going there or some other paper tournament, with this deck especially, it's probably good to just shuffle in your whole sideboard, take out 15 cards. That way they won't even have any idea of what you're doing, right? Even if you're, I don't know, just taking out every single card you just put in and not sideboarding at all, I wouldn't recommend that. But I'm just saying, like, whatever it is you're doing, I would, with this more than anything else, like, probably do that.
The beauty of that plan also is that it's a fast deck, so you're not like wasting time and then you go to time in the round. You generally don't go to time in the round with this deck.
Right, right. It's pretty, yeah, it's pretty quick, one way or the other.
Yeah.
You have a lot of things that snowball pretty fast. So what I'll say is, so what I did was in game two, because the first round I won game one, won game two was, uh, I was on the draw, so I took out my dazes, kept in all of my forces because I'm like, if they conceded this fast, I think their mindset is they want a quick one.
Yeah.
They want this to be over quick. They think this matchup is all about who can stick something first, who can do something first. And Days is just not only is it tempo negative, but I'm just thinking they're probably gonna jam.
Yeah.
So, I did, what I just said. I took out the Days. I kept the forces in. I brought in some extra removal, and I brought in the graveyard stuff. I kept in two Intunes and an Atraxa. I know some people like to leave in the Archon, but what I found is that if you reanimate your Archon and they have a fatty in hand, they can discard their fatty, and then
Yeah.
you've just enabled their strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
happened. It's happened a lot, especially in the last, especially in the post grief meta where you can't see their hand. You don't know which one to get. I erred towards like the side of caution, and I think Atrax is just a safer bet. So
Let's also not forget that if they, let's say they have a fanatic, a fatty, and a brainstorm, they could do a situation where they can get around your next attack by having two creatures in play. Now, whatever the other creature is has lifelink, and they can start to make back because fanatic basically puts two creatures into play, right?
yeah, and they can even like ambush block your Archon. They just fanatic in their
Yeah,
Atraxa.
yeah,
And they sack the fanatic, and then boom, they're blocked. They just killed your Archon with their Atraxa, and they drew like four cards or whatever.
yeah,
So totally. Um, so I think there is an argument for Archon also. It's because it's a little bit better of a catch up mechanic because you are killing you're killing something from their side. You're gaining some life back, which you otherwise might not right away with Atraxa. But I can only tell you what my experience was, and
yeah,
that was like in the Atraxa. But it was what ended up happening was I think I just chained two fanatics into a troll again and
yeah.
went from there. Um, and
You
yeah, and
don't win
that
on
and that
style
was
points, with this deck.
right, right, yeah, yeah. I just it was it all came down to the I think the way the deck was built, and I just played it how I would normally play it, but with just this configuration.
Awesome.
So
So
yeah.
game one was just two games: troll fanatic, troll fanatic.
Yeah, troll. Yeah, pretty much troll fanatic, and
Sounds
then like
great.
fanatic troll or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what about round two?
Round two is blue black tempo,
Okay.
and I lost round one because I believe they just had like a spell bomb immediately.
Game one,
Which
you're saying you
game
game
one, not
yeah,
sorry,
game
not round one. In game one, they had a spell bomb immediately, or they had one before I could do anything. Like a really early spell bomb, and they just beat me down with Nethergoyf. Couldn't find a push, I couldn't land a frog, couldn't do much,
yeah,
and so I lost. And it was actually kind of a relief to get game one over with because I was boarding out I'm like, get this out of here. There's these entombs are going to be dead when they have like a million spell bombs, probably surgicals and all
yeah,
this other stuff. That's sort of blue black's specialty. So I took all those out, brought in the bowmasters, the Nethergoyfs, uh, the brazen bar, all the removal, and then game two I won with I think I went ghost vacuum into hearse and then frog, or it's some combination of that where like I couldn't tell how good ghost vacuum was because I also had a hearse. Like the hearse kind of did
yeah.
a lot of it, and then I'm like, well, if they didn't daze this hearse, this frog's probably gonna stick. So then I think eventually I just got there with the frog, and then game three it was like just this huge grind fest where I
Yeah.
eventually, I drew a more of my removal. It lined up against their draws, and I got them that way. But yeah, no way was I gonna combo off. They just had so much hate, so
Yeah.
that was
I
bad.
think in that game too, like getting out Frog just kind of
Yeah,
buries them if they can't get rid of it.
totally. And like I know they have a million removals, so yeah, just getting the frog to stick was huge. Yeah. And
So
then
then game three.
game three was uh like I said, it was more it was more grindy, more of a back and forth. You know, we just traded resources until eventually one of us stuck a threat and won. I don't remember if that was the game where I had Baragoi. Um, but in one of those games, actually it might have been. It was. I think that was the game where I went like Frog and a Baragoi, and they didn't have days, and I just just kept turning them sideways and got there. So that one was pretty decisive.
Okay. So yeah, sticking fair creatures is the way to beat the fair deck. That makes sense. So let's talk about round three. You're two and
Yeah, 2-0, and then now I'm playing the mirror again. And this time I pretty much my cyber plan was exactly like round one mirror. It was win lose win. I did the same thing, and I got there.
yeah.
So that's how that one went. I don't think I ever comboed off, or at least I don't remember comboing off.
So you just went fair play on this one. Played Frog.
Yeah, I mean I kept in a little bit of the combo. I never drew it. I did brainstorm into a fairy macabre when I needed it, and I think that was huge.
Yeah.
Um, that was the game three decider. Um,
Yeah. Let's talk about round four.
Sure. Round four was a Wool Gorger combo, so pretty much
Okay.
Reanimator with a sideboard juke. This time with the Witherbloom combo juke, I believe.
Okay.
And
This is
so
like Chain of Smog.
yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
Chain
Yeah.
of Smog. So I lose game one immediately. They just had the nuts. They had Unmasked into Dark Ritual combo, and I was
Yeah.
just done. Right, even with Force of Will in my hand, it was they take it, they get it. Then games two and three, uh, Cycle Troll, Reanimate Troll, uh, you know, uh, counter spells, backup.
Yeah.
Game
Just protect the
three,
queen. Yeah.
exactly. Same thing in game three where I was able to land a troll, and then they actually never found a combo piece. They just kept kept thought seizing me and unmasking me, but they never had any payoff.
Yeah.
So that was that one.
Yeah, that seems like the way that match goes a lot of times is like
Yeah,
you're once you know what they're up to, you're much more resilient against their plan, and
yeah,
they're not they've got some discard and stuff, but because of so much of your deck just being like, oh, I just top decked the card I needed, God forbid they accidentally like hit you and all you have is creatures in your hand, like
yeah,
you're
totally.
like thanks for the help. Yeah, so let's talk about so that was round four.
That was
So
round four, and then
we've got
combo out for that one too.
yeah, so we've got Reanimator, Blue Black Tempo, Reanimator, World Gorger. Now
Blue Black Tempo again.
Blue Black Tempo again.
Blue Black
Hey,
Tempo
a
again.
lot of underground seas today.
A lot of underground seas, and this one was I lost this one. They spellbound me, wasted me out of the game, killed my frogs 2 games in a row. And I could just tell this opponent was like a much stronger opponent. This opponent ended up being my finals opponent.
Okay.
So I definitely took notes of their play style, which was just super aggressive, you know, cutting off your resources and stopping your game plan. So uh,
Playing Delver, right? Like playing the
playing
Delver
Delver,
plan. Yeah, yeah.
it was Delver. Yeah, I got Delvered. So that was round five, and so now I'm 4-1. I'm still feeling good, but I'm like, okay, well, I need to win this next one, or else I'm gonna so I can lock it up. And then the last round was against Eldrazi, and
Okay.
this
Yeah,
was
what's important about this matchup? Because this is one I don't see as often as I'd like to when I'm playing.
this one was a learning experience. Let me tell you, this one was I get the first one because I just had turn two Archon, and then games two and three they were ready for me, like they had it all. They had Fairy Macabres, they had Flesh Rakers and the K command to fireball me. They had they had the nuts, so to speak. So they took games 2 and 3 from me. And they were playing a version that had Null Drifter, and
Okay.
I think I made a mistake where I didn't reanimate a one of their Thought Seers to kind of to Thought Seize them, and then they actually played around my double UC by wastelanding me twice. They were using a wasteland. They had a wasteland that they used for mana. They wastelanded me, played another wasteland, took me off all my mana, even though I had this giant frog, killed my frog, and then just like decimated me.
Damn.
And so I had the combo in my hand, and but they, I'm sure they had fair comp, but it didn't even matter because I think at some point I tried to combo off, but they had the answers. So I'm 4-2 going like, okay, this started out great, guns a blazing. Now I'm 4-2. I
The
might
wheels are
not. I'm
falling
probably
off.
not gonna make it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just went downstairs, like got a sandwich. I came back, and then the timer was up. I'm like, oh, I'm in seventh. So now I'm in the top eight. I'm playing against this painter player, very good painter player who was undefeated all around in Swiss. Um, and then basically I'm like, okay, well, game face. Let's try to take this down. I'm happy to top eight, but let's let's really focus. It took me two Atraxa reanimations and a brazen borrower, to find a brazen borrower for their bridge to bounce it and
The bridge,
to
yeah.
beat them. But they were really good. They made a play. I made a mistake where they had a bridge and they had a welder in their graveyard. I should have reanimated the welder and welded out their bridge, and that would have been way more fast.
Yeah.
But like it was like at that point it was so late, and it was I still had work that day that I had
Yeah.
to come back from that I'm like, oh, like duh, there's that
That's
line.
that. It's a heads up play. Is realizing that the welder can weld out the opponent's stuff, right? Like if you're not
Yeah, yeah,
playing, if you're not the person who plays welder often, people don't think about that as like, oh yeah, welder can get your opponent's stuff too.
yeah, totally. And what happened was they made the heads up play of getting Soul Guy Lantern with their Saga and exiling their own welder. Or no, no, you can't do that. It was like either that or like Soul Cauldron, I think.
Yeah.
But they when they exiled their own welder, like that's when it hit me that
Yeah.
I
You're like, oh
get
yeah,
punted. But you reanimate tracks it twice, you find your brazen borrower, no big
you're
deal.
bound to find something, right? Yeah, that'll do it.
Um, and then game two, I took out all the dazes, all the
Yeah, I was gonna
forces,
say, how do you
tried to
sideboard here?
combo
Yeah.
everything out. Graveyard hate in, very macabre in even.
Yeah.
All the
Bring in some
removal in,
removal, right? Yeah.
yeah, all of it, all the removal, and I just got with the fair plan with I think just attacking with some fanatics, and I reanimated their Phyrexian whatever it's called, Devourer,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and just made them keep chumping with their constructs, and got there that way. So then that was the quarterfinals. The semifinals was my Eldrazi opponent who blew me out. They had a turn one chalice on the play, and I couldn't really do much about that. And but games two and three, I'm like, this person seems to have my number. I'm just gonna board out the combo. I'm not gonna make them have it. I'm gonna play super careful and just try to play this fair game with fanatics and trolls. Try to block whatever they're doing. Try to kill the flesh rakers. And I think I disrupted their early game plan, and they whiffed a bunch. I just kept attacking with fanatics, and I got there that way. So that's how I won games two and three. Was just fair game plan against
Yeah.
Eldrazi. Surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean, lifelink goes a long way against that deck, so there is that, and
100%. Yeah.
obviously adding fanatic, giving lifelink to almost any other creature that you have, right? Like that's going to be good to begin with, and then if you can just stay in the game long enough, your plan is for the most part much more over the top than theirs. So if you can just last those couple of turns and get your thing going, you generally can win.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and just having Frog that plays around Chalice on one also. So um
So you
I didn't see their hand, but I'm sure that they had like macabres and like a
yeah.
bunch of stuff that they couldn't deploy. So
So you
yeah,
limped into the top eight, and now you're in the finals.
yeah. And it kind of hit me after the round was over. I'm like, I was happy just popping him. I'm like, oh, I'm about to play the finals. It's like 11 o'clock, and this went pretty long. I lose game one. The same way it was again, it was my blue black tempo
Yeah.
opponent from the Swiss that, crushed me. And then in game one the same way, like they did in the Swiss. Games two and three, I just kind of had to like pause for a moment and just kind of reevaluate what they were doing and what I wanted to do, and then go from there. Where it
Did,
took a lot of resource trading. Eventually, we traded Nethergoyfs and frogs. Eventually, I just had a brazen borrower that bounced their Murktide and just swung for like 9 points of damage or
yeah.
something. And I won with this brazen borrower and these fanatics that were keeping their Nethergoyfs from attacking or something like that.
Did
I
you
mean, but again, yeah, still a
change
good
your
point.
strategy at all the second time playing this guy since you knew you were playing the same guy, knowing how aggressive he was?
Yeah, I think I changed sort of my outlook on it. I didn't change the sideboard plan at all. I think the plan stayed the same, but I just sort of hunkered down and kind of thought this person's this person's in it to win it. I think we're in it for the long haul, and at the end of the match, I think they had like 3 minutes on the clock. I had like 6 minutes on my clock or something. It came down to the wire. Like
Wow.
it was a pretty it was a grind fest. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, and then you won.
Yeah, and then
Amazing.
there was this pause, and I'm going like, can they answer these fanatics and this Raisin Borrower? And then I just see in the chat, so and so conceded from the game. J Lady wins the match, and I'm like, there it is.
Yeah.
It's 11. Oh, it's almost midnight. And he's not there.
Not even any time to celebrate. You're like, I'm going right to bed.
I'm going. I have work. Yeah, exactly.
So I mean that's amazing. First off, like it's super
Thanks.
rad that
Yeah,
you were able to pull that out of the challenge. Especially like I can't count the number of times I have gone like 3-0 and then 0-3 right afterwards. Like you're just like I'm doing it, and then all of a sudden the wheels fall
yeah,
off. Right. That happened to me at like the Eternal Weekend with Treasure Cruise. I was on like Rug Delver, and then I just like crushed a couple of guys in the early rounds. I was at table one and my opponent like
yeah,
slammed a what's it called? Because everyone was playing Treasure Cruise, so my opponent slammed a Notion Thief, and I wasn't even on the 4 of Treasure Cruise plan. I only had 2 in the deck because I need to keep my mongooses up, right? And I remember
yeah,
BDM was like standing over me, just like watching the match, and I was like, "Can't I just draw cards like Garfield intended?" Like. But
yeah,
but yeah, like so it's awesome that you were able to like take, a pretty strong start, have a little falter, get into the top 8 and then just ride it out, amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, and yes, it's just one of those things where like at any point like I barely limped in, and I'm just glad I was able to kind of rally and come back from it. So hopefully that's something I can do at like EW.
Yeah.
Is just because it's going to be a long game, right? It's going to be more than 6 rounds or nine
Yeah.
rounds or whatever. It's going to be, I don't know how many rounds it is, but it's a day two, so yeah, you kind of have to stay focused for that.
Yeah. Well, so what did you take away from this tournament? As far as obviously we know the position of this deck in the meta is like at tier 1, tier S, whatever wherever you want to place it, it's high up there.
Yeah, yeah,
But what did you pull anything? Did you learn anything out of this that you didn't know coming in?
yeah. I think one was, I think I learned the Eldrazi matchup a little bit better. I think I just learned all my matchups um a little more than I had just playing leagues because I think like you mentioned at EW you had this hot run right when you
Yeah.
started off, and kind of towards the end the wheels fall off a little bit. We've all been there, but when you get into the late rounds, you kind of have this like clarity of the
It gets
format and of
serious. Yeah.
the deck that you didn't have when you started. It's like your deck a little bit more than when you started, even if it's something you've registered a million times. Maybe you played it at locals, and it's just you go through the rounds and you start to see maybe the variance a little more. You start to play against different opponents, and just all these things happen. So so I think one of the key takeaways is just it's kind of cliche, but it's like when you get to those late rounds, you really have to start thinking about like what you're gonna lose to. How do I lose?
Yeah.
How do I get back from this? What's my opponent gonna do? What do I think? What do I think they're gonna do? What do they think I'm gonna do? And but I have noticed that like yeah, it's been well positioned, but I've noticed more people are sort of like coming out of I forget what the phrase is, but like more people are now like testing for Eternal Weekend than they were a week ago.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
starting to see a lot of like themes lists come out. I saw a Merfolk deck that I played against, more artifact decks, and so it's almost like you suddenly have this X factor thrown in of all these other decks, and it's like, well, before I was metagaming against people who played these challenges, who did all this stuff. Now there's like, how much are we going to over-index for the mirror? Should we be preparing for a wider field? Like how many rounds do I have to get into EW till I can, you know, till
So
I
you're
can
just
like,
playing against Reanimator in rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, right?
right, right, right. Like, and do you want to be doing that? Do we want to keep playing against Reanimator?
Yeah.
Um, so I think those are my takeaways. And uh, but yeah, for moving forward, I do think there's going to be other builds with Fnatic that can really leverage the value, maybe more so than this deck. I don't know. I think anything's possible.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
John, thanks for coming on. And again, congratulations, man. It's awesome. Take down a challenge is no small feat.
Yeah. Thanks, Zach. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great to be here.
Heck yeah.
Thanks for having me
We
on.
gotta have you on again. Not just when you win a challenge. To talk more about the format. But
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks everybody for watching. If you like this video, if you learned something, hit the buttons. You know how it goes. And we will catch you next time.
All right. Thanks.
Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help sustain the Legacy content ecosystem. Just subscribing to this channel goes a long way to reminding YouTube that people love and support this format. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you should think about supporting us through Patreon. Both the links for subscription and Patreon are right here. And if you're listening on an audio format, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles. Thanks so much for watching.